Disabled and having a hard time getting an Uber? Uber appears to have you covered. Finally. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and one of my most interesting videos that I made while I was away in Germany, because I was still uploading videos while I was in Germany and the Czech Republic. It was actually really funny because people say, hey, your videos are popping up at 4 and 5 p.m. Why is that? And it's like, because I'm in another country and I'm still making them. I'm still committed to the channel. But one of the topics that I talked about was that Uber was getting sued by wheelchair advocates and disability centers for not providing enough handicapped cars. Now, this video got tons of comments because I actually kind of defended Uber, and I still do in this particular case. And it's not that I dislike disabled people. Technically, I'm a disabled person. I qualify for the placard and everything. I don't get it because I'm not a jerk, but I do qualify for it. And I happen to be walking the streets of Germany and just doing the vlog while I was walking, and I saw a wheelchair accessible vehicle. It was like the perfect timing, so to speak. And it was like, okay, see, this is why there are not more wheelchair accessible vehicles, because they have to be these big cars that have to be specially equipped, and we are independent contractors. Most people are not gonna, the average person's not gonna have this type of car. Yeah, that's just how it is. And unfortunately, they don't do a very good job of incentivizing people who have these types of cars to do the service because they pay the exact same amount of money for the rides. And it's like, that car is a specialty vehicle. It takes thousands of dollars sometimes to upgrade it to be wheelchair accessible, all for the same 68 cents per mile or 72 cents, whatever the heck it is. And most people are just going to go, no. And so Uber cannot be held responsible for that if they are indeed independent contractors. Now, since then, that term has definitely been stretched a little bit, to be perfectly honest. But if we are truly independent contractors, then essentially that's like suing the homeless shelter because they don't have enough people volunteering their time to serve food at the homeless shelter. That's not how it works. And I tried to explain that. And, people definitely take that very, very personally, particularly people who are disabled, who I do understand it's not fun to see people not trying to accommodate you, at least be perceived to not be trying to accommodate you. I mean, for example, part of my disability is that I actually have very, very sensitive hearing. Like, it's super sensitive. So I have to carry like earplugs with me to like movies and stuff like that. It's just not very fun. And yet when I go to a restaurant, one of the biggest problems is balloons. I mean, this sounds so stupid to the average person, but when a balloon pops, it like triggers the nerves and like my hands start shaking, and it's very, very painful and uncomfortable. And I get very upset with restaurants when I say, can you get rid of the balloons? But I'm one person, and it's very difficult to change something that other people find perfectly acceptable. And the thing about this is that, well, as I pointed out, it's independent contractors. It's like you're getting mad at the drivers for not investing their own money to take this occasional ride that won't even net them any more money. But after all of that, now we can get to the news story. Boy, I talked a lot about that one for some reason. Because Uber, as you can see from the drive, is adding more wheelchair accessible vehicles after scrutiny from public and regulators. So according to the article, Uber has been criticized in the past for not providing enough wheelchair accessible vehicles. Again, a fallacy. Uber doesn't provide any vehicles whatsoever, much less a wheelchair accessible vehicle. So there you have it. But now the ride-hailing company is recruiting outside help to remedy that, which, let's be fit, I'm going to be honest, they should have done that from the beginning. When this became an issue and they realized that people really wanted wheelchair accessible cars and they were suing them, Uber should have done what they do best, make deals with an outside company to bring more in. They are finally doing it, but it took them too long to do that, in my opinion. Uber is partnering with paratransit operator MV Transportation to get more properly equipped vehicles into operation. The goal is to ensure that wheelchair users don't have to wait more than 15 minutes for a ride. MT Transportation operates across 30 states and Canada, But the company's vehicles will only initially be available through Uber in New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, Toronto, and Washington, D.C., an Uber blog post said. The company said it may expand the program in other cities. Well, they're going to have to expand the program to other cities, because here's one of the problems. Well, I don't know if this might not be a problem per se, but for them, it's a problem. They're obviously doing their little test run thing. That's what they do. They open in a few markets, they test it out, and if there's high demand or whatever, then they expand it. And if it doesn't really catch on, or it's just something that they ultimately decide isn't working, they discontinue it. And it doesn't go beyond those test cities. The problem in this particular case is that they are doing this in response to the complaints that they are not providing enough wheelchair accessibility. Not only are they still not providing enough because they're singling out which states and cities, in fact, get this service, which I can guarantee you the activists and the disabled and the handicapped are not going to take kindly to if they don't live in those areas. But by testing it out, what if they decide, hey, you know what, this just isn't profitable, we're not going to continue doing it? Then they're in even more hot water. Now, I don't think these lawsuits that they're being sued with have any merit based on the independent contractor status of the company, but you can see why this doesn't exactly help them. So, continuing. Uber has historically relied on freelance drivers to provide their own cars, but the company said there simply weren't enough wheelchair accessible vehicles available. That demonstrates a downside to Uber's business model. Not owning vehicles and treating drivers as independent contractors saves money, but it also means Uber has less control over what vehicles are in its fleet, which I discussed in my other video. All wheelchair accessible vehicles under the new program are owned by MV Transportation and will be operated by the company's drivers. Rides will cost the same as an UberX. Uber head of global policy for accessibility and underserved communications, Malcolm Glenn, said in the interview with TechCrunch. Glenn said Uber is investing heavily in MV to ensure the desired level of service. So what that basically means is they're probably buying a stake in the company, which is also probably a good idea. It diversifies their portfolio in preparation for the IPO. Now, they probably don't want to own too much of it because once they start owning vehicles, they can be classified as a transportation company. And that's one of the things that they don't want, so they can avoid some of these rules and regulations. What I am curious about is it'll cost the same as an UberX. And my question is but are the drivers going to get paid more? Because again, that's the big problem. You have an UberX and you have the handicapped cars. Or the Uber, is it Uber Wave? I forgot what it is. I think it's Uber Wave. Or Uber Access. Something like that. And they cost the same, but they're a lot harder to drive. So, are they going to pay them more for those trips? I don't know. That's a good question. Uber has begun focusing more on people with disabilities in 2014 with the launch of Uber Access. Okay, it was Uber Access. That apparently didn't do the trick, as the company, along with rival Lyft, has been sued over the intervening years for lack of the wheelchair accessible vehicles and face increased scrutiny from regulators. In addition to the partnership with MV, Uber has joined a paratransit pilot program in Boston run by the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, the city's public transit agency. Okay, and that's the end of that article. So let's get back up to the picture, and then I'll end with my closing comments, which really are quite simple. Bottom line, good thing. This is a good thing. Now, I do hope that, this is where it's going to get really, really complicated, because you're independent contractors, but you kind of own the vehicles, but then you're not going to have employees. See, I don't know how that's going to work out. Hopefully, if you do this, you will get a little bit more money, because for what you have to drive and what you have to do, you deserve more than 60 cents a mile and 10 cents a minute. You deserve way more than that. So who knows what's going to happen there, but ultimately, if you are handicapped or disabled, then yeah, this is going to be a good thing. Hopefully you will have more rides, and hopefully Uber will find a way to branch it out in the future. So anyway, of course, I'd love to hear your comments. I'm sure they're going to be rather passionate like they were last time. What do you think? Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.